Hello and welcome to the Women Creating Wealth 10K in 10 Days Challenge. We hope you will enjoy this exclusive content that we've created with you in mind. And we hope that it might help shift your own money consciousness, money stories, and your thoughts around what just might be possible for you. So we invite you to come along, and if you would like to help us with our own 10K in 10 Days challenge, we would love if you would shop amongst our services and our products. We have memberships for enjoying family photo sessions and family art. Every once in a while, we have a few mini session events that are available to the public, and we have a beautiful guided self-love meditation and a gorgeous, warming, comfy chamomile and cinnamon tea that you can pair with your self-love meditation. So enjoy having a look around, enjoy shopping and treating yourself, and we hope you enjoy this episode.
Hi everyone, this is Ariana from Wealthier Photography, and if you have been with us the few days prior, then you know that we're doing the Women Creating Wealth 10K in 10 Days challenge. So we're having different female entrepreneurs on to talk about their own wealth journeys, and one of those is Jess Keating, and she talks about herself being a children's book author, a scientist, and a shamanic success coach. And I know that you love blending science with spirit and imagination to help women heal blockages around their own ability to create wealth. So I'm delighted to jump in and talk to you about these things today. So welcome, first thing. And is there anything that you would like to share about yourself that maybe I didn't cover?
Oh gosh. Well, you did a fantastic job.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just really excited to be here. Women and wealth are like, I think they're just two peas in a pod. I think they belong together. And it's one of those things that I think the tide is turning now. We are talking about it more, but we also have to make up for like millennia of not talking about it enough, right? And I think wealth is just one of those ways that is a physical embodiment of the way that many people, and we speak of women in general, but also like marginalized groups, people of color, all of that. It's one of the physical manifestations of how people have been disempowered, throughout history. And it's one of those things that I think is just so crucial to talk about. I will warn you, like, I am a bit of a chit chatter. Like, I could go on. This is supposed to be like, 20 minutes or something, half an hour. You will have to cut me off and like grab the big fork and like the hook and drag me over there. But yeah, I'm just really passionate about this stuff. And like you said, Ariana, I'm somebody who for years struggled because I didn't feel like I had a place for myself. And I'm sure that a lot of people that are watching right now will feel the same way. Maybe you do too, because you put a lot of things together. Yes. And I think when we're younger, one of the most harmful questions we get is like, what do you want to be when you grow up? Right? Because it presumes that there's like a thing, like one thing. Yeah. And I would see friends be like, oh, I want to be a nurse. I want to be a doctor. I want to be an artist. And I was like, oh my God, I want to be everything. Like I want to be a zoologist, which I did. I want to be an author. I want to be a mermaid. I want to be a Jeep. Like I figure, because I figured, well, Jeeps explore the world. You see all the car commercials, right? Like yes. Jeeps are the ones exploring the world. So I wanted to be like 10 or 15 things. And nobody really told me nobody told me that doesn't need to be a bad thing. You are not all over the map. You are yes. the map. So my journey in terms of creating wealth was very much a process of accepting that feeling that there was nothing wrong with me. It took me into my 30s to stop feeling guilty over the fact that I'm not just one thing. Yeah. You know what I mean? And nobody is one thing. Very few people are lucky enough to be like, I'm a professional soccer player. My money comes from here. Right. And I used to be envious of people like that. But now I recognize, the things that make us really, really weird and, really strange and sort of badass in our own way. We aren't meant to sort of segregate and compartmentalize those parts of ourselves. And my journey to becoming, what I feel is a much more empowered version of myself. We always have further to go. Right. But from looking back to where I started and where I am now, it was that process of stopping the bullshit for, pardon my French, but of trying to close myself down. The minute we try to limit ourselves into saying, okay, what are you? like, that's such an aggressive question, right? The minute we get over that and we allow ourselves to be the full expression of what I see as our creative selves, that's just what a job is to me. A job is just creative expression. When we do that, that to me is the key to tapping into like legit wealth. And that comes through as like money, of course, because we all want, you know, the yacht or the beach house or whatever it is, but it's also that sort of, you know, that energetic and internal sense of abundance. So yeah, that's my spiel.
I love that. I love the we are the map. That was beautiful. And I have a question. Do you have a 3 in your human design by any chance?
I do. I am a, how did you know? Are you a human design?
I'm a 3-5
I'm
generator.
a 3-5. My God. So I actually envy generators in my life. I think my buddy Gabby, you chatted with her, so she'll be one of these series as well. Yes. She is a generator as well, but I think she's 6'2". I'm a 3-5 manifester. Okay. And again, this was one of those things that pre-human design, like that wasn't a thing when I was growing up, right? Like who knew of these things? And I would beat myself up because I would see all of my, now I know they're generator friends who were able to like wake up every day and like, okay, back to work we go, and like set this little path for themselves. And I would just be like, I am exhausted. Like I have 2 modes, creative explosion or recovery. Yeah, that's it. And I would beat myself up because it was like, is there something wrong with my internal like energetic combustion that I'm so tired today? Or like, I don't want to launch this thing today. Or like, I'm an author. So a big part of my job is like, look at my books. Here's what I'm doing and selling all that stuff. And I, for the longest time, felt like shit about the fact that I wasn't able to replicate the lifestyle that people seem to be putting around me. Yes. And, you know, as I said, like, you know, we are the map, like part of that is accepting who you are. And absolutely. I mean, human design is a great catalyst. Like who the hell knows if it's, you know what I like, I'm very much, I'm a scientist, but I'm also like a spiritual coach. So I'm able to kind of hold both of those worlds. But even if you purely look at it from a sense of like a catalyst into yourself, like how do I feel when I learn about human design? When I read all the stuff about manifestors, and you were probably the same way with your generator stuff. When I read all the stuff about manifestors, I was like, oh my God, like I'm seen, you know? Yeah. And that alone, that internal resonance of like that tuning fork hitting and being like, yes, this is me. That gives me permission. And like, oh my God, what a relief that was. I don't know that much about it other than I'm selfish, like other than my own type. Like I don't know much other than the generators in my life. I'm always envious of you guys because like I said, you can just sit down and be like day 3 of plotting away at this dream. And I'm like, oh my God, I have to start again every day.
Well, I can identify very much with the 3 aspect. And it wasn't until I actually sat down and I hired Gabby to go through my profile with me. And when she told me that the 3 aspect was that I was here to try it all and experience it all. And I was already on this journey of not making anything about myself wrong anymore. That was very much my focus for the year. And it's been beautiful. And hearing her say that I was here to try and experience everything made me feel like that was okay. So there are people who are probably like, why do you have a photography company? And yet you're talking about wealth creation for women. But it's the truth of the fact that I am a multi-passionate human being, and I feel like if there's something of value that I can put out to the world through a business that I've created, then I'm going to put that value out there. I'm going to help try to impact lives through more than just that divine skill of mine, which is photographing people. So it's so
then we
fun to
need
meet
that. I know, like like you said, this past, past 2 years, like with the pandemic stuff, like that was obviously a big turning point for a lot of people. And this has definitely been this past 2 years where I've been like, you know what, let's just presume that there's nothing faulty about me. You know, like, let's presume that what I want is actually coming from someplace, you know, for lack of a better word, divine. Like that might be a triggering word for some people, whatever beliefs are, but let's presume that that energetic or evolutionary imprint isn't wrong.
Yes.
What then? you know, and like you said, learning that you can speak about wealth creation and be a photographer. Like, I love that, by the way. Before I was doing what I was doing, my husband and I were both wedding photographers together as a way to earn like side cat. Like, I've had every freelance job on the planet because I hate working for other. I'm a manifestor, right? So don't tell me what to do. I've never had a boss before in my life, but I have like done all these different jobs. So I love that I mean, what is more magical than photography, right? Like, you're not just capturing a moment, like you're creating a story, you're using all these other, like, it's incredible. So yeah, to me, it makes perfect sense that somebody like a photographer would also talk about wealth creation or, you know, pies, anything you want. Like, we have to stop limiting ourselves.
Absolutely. Well, I'm curious, as one artist to another, was there any aspect of being an artist or like a children's book author or any of that you felt limited your wealth creation, maybe initially? Maybe you don't believe it now, but did you go through that journey of removing that belief?
Yeah, so I ended up, the journey that I had in terms of being an author, specifically children's book authors, we're a funny bunch, and creatives in general are a funny bunch. But when it comes to authors in general, we tend to be quite, I mean, we're in our heads. We see our bodies, as Ken Robinson said, as a way to get our heads to meetings. Right? Like, we live a lot in our heads, and we tend to be quite anxious, and we tend to, as creative souls, be so desperate for creative expression, which is a good thing. That's a good thing. But we look everywhere around outside of ourselves for the validation. And that was something, I think, in the world of authors or publishing, and probably to the same extent, I think of it like maybe being an actor. Like, you want to be seen, you want your words to be heard and recognized. And where that stems from isn't just because like you want to see your name in lights. It's that you want the thing that matters to you to also matter to other people.
Yeah.
And what I feel was most disempowering with my industry of, you know, kid lit and children's books is that we have these like baked in systems that automatically feel disempowering. So we use words like gatekeepers, for example, to describe agents or editors, right? When I finish a book, I have to send it to an agent who then sends it to an editor. So there's all these like dragons at these doorways that I realized. I was in the children's book industry for almost 10 years or maybe even more. Oh, yikes. Getting myself there. Aging is fine, ladies. I was in that industry for about a decade before I recognized, like, what is this thing I'm feeling? Like, it's not just that it's overwhelm. It was a sense of really toxic disempowerment. And it got so bad that I stepped away for a while, and I had to give myself the freedom. I mean, everybody knew that I was talking out my butt, but I was like, I might just pause for a little while, right? I had to give myself the freedom of maybe possibly quitting. And when I did that, that was a couple years ago, kind of right when COVID hit, when the pandemic hit, I realized where I'd gone wrong. I was like, I'm buying into these lies. Like, being a children's book author or any creative, you know, when you're publishing anything, or like a photographer, it is literally no different than being a creative entrepreneur. No different. We have all the same tools at our disposal, except we write books, right? So what I ended up doing, I was so pissed off at how this industry was like beating down some of the most talented women I know, like people who woke up every day with so much to say, and their messages needed to be heard, their voices needed to be heard, but they were just like, but nothing I do matters. I can't get anybody. And I was like, this is wrong. So I actually ended up creating a program called Epic Authors Academy. I'm actually just launching, we didn't plan this, but I'm launching it today. The door's open to it. It's an 8-week program where I take creatives and authors and illustrators through all of these subconscious blocks that we don't even realize are like shoved onto us in my industry. But the funny thing is, as I've been doing this program, I did it once over the summer, and I had like, you know, when you start a new program, you have like really, really high hopes, but at the same time, you're like, oh, like what's going to happen, right? But I was completely floored with the responses. I had people emailing me saying, Jess, like the the subconscious stuff that you taught me, like we do a lot of inner child healing, and I do some, activations that are basically shamanic journeying, but that's just not the word I use.
Yeah.
They used all of these tools to kind of learn who they were. I had people saying like, oh my God, Jess, I listened to my intuition and I sent an agent to query and I got signed on the spot, stuff like that. But also stuff like, I would get an email. I got one email that said like, I know this isn't like the reason for your course, but I've lost 15 pounds in a healthy way because I'm able to hear myself again. And that's when I was like, oh, so it's not just, doesn't just apply to authors, like all of this stuff that we do, in success coaching or whatever you want to call it, it's really applicable across the board. So my goal now is to take what I do with authors and basically bust it all open and give it to anybody who wants it, right? Rather than, you don't have to be in the children's book industry. Like, I want to help photographers break through their visibility blocks. Yeah. And I want to help, pie makers. That's the second time I've mentioned pie. I must be hungry. Like, I want to help all these creative women recognize that, how we always say like, oh, the answers are already in you, honey. Like, we say that stuff. That always annoyed the crap out of me, because it's like, well, where though? Show me where. Like, show me the actual place that I can go. And this process that I take people through, that's that process. Wow. It's the process of not only like, you have all the answers, Ariana, right? But if you don't know where to find them, if you don't know how to trust it, and if you don't know how to act on it, it won't matter. You know what I mean? So it's kind of this process. I take women through this process of creating kind of a soul map, right, to recognize, okay, why don't I trust my intuition? Do I even hear it? What does it sound like? How do I discriminate between intuition and anxiety? Like, that's a really common question. Is it my intuition talking, or is it just my phobia of life, right? Yes. Like those things. But when you teach women how to recognize their own blocks and then heal those blocks, and then hear that stuff, hear all those little voices that tell us, the actual answers, the thing that we point to when we say the answers are already in you, dear. Once we give them the root to that voice, the rest of it's like, it's almost painfully simple. Like I had somebody that signed up for one-to-one with me, and they ended up canceling it because during the program, they were like, I recognize that I didn't give myself enough credit, and I learned enough from you already to trust my own intuition forevermore. And part of me was like, oh crap, like, am I overgiving here? But then I was like, no, that's, the answers really are in every one of us. Yeah. We really do have that. But that, knowing that isn't enough. Like, just knowing like, oh, great. Thanks, Jess. Like, thanks, Ariana. I have them somewhere, but they're so buried in our trauma, they're buried in our programming, they're buried in our neural nets, in our brains. Like, we have to actively remove all of that clutter. So that's what I see my job as. Like, I'm just somebody who, like, when you're looking in the mirror, I'm wiping away the crud on the mirror. So you can actually feel, I'm basically spiritual Windex, I guess. Like, I just thought of that, but like, that's really what this process is. And everybody has different ways of doing it. Like we've talked about, Gabby, and we'll be speaking of a few other ladies who, everybody has their own method for Windexing off the stuff. Yeah. But mine is through, I like to blend that science. You cannot beat science. Like, woo is fantastic, but when you mix the non-ordinary imaginal realms with science, oh my God, like nothing is more powerful. Nothing is more powerful. And I was reading, I'm talking a lot here, but I was reading a study that said, if you tell people why something works, it will be even more effective. So if I explain to you, like, let's say you're trying to, I don't know, lose weight. And if I explain to you, like, okay, this is what carbs do, this is what fat does, blah, blah, blah. When you're going through your day, if you know that stuff, it will be more effective for you physiologically. Yeah. And that is why I think what I do is so fun, because I can say the science and be like, here's what's happening in your actual brain, or in your, in your vagal system, or in your nervous system, or your parasympathetic, like whatever. Here's what's happening as you're making these choices, and here's why it works. And then when you pair that with like the spiritual stuff of like soul recovery or inner child healing, like, my God, it is just so, so powerful. Like, it's it is bananas how fortunate I feel to be now in a position where I can do this, because it didn't feel, I did not feel empowered in my career for years. And it's not because I didn't have what it took or anybody else. Everybody has what it takes. It's because the world really does conspire to kind of keep you as small as possible. That's it. Like disempowered women are like, it's the worst thing for our planet. You know what I mean? That like environmentally, but also just in our society, like the more empowered women we have, the better the planet is. So that is my very long-winded spiel about what I do and how I started.
Well, I love that.
I told you I was a talker.
I love the spiritual Windex, and like that's kind of what I do for. I love that, because like that's what I feel like I get to do for people. It really isn't taking pictures. It's having someone feel safe to be seen for who they are and to reflect that back to them and have them truly see themselves and sit with themselves, because that changes things. Because so often we go through life and we're not really seeing ourselves. We're not taking the time to, we're scared to, it's confronting or affronting. It's like, but if someone else can help you through that process and see that there's so much more there that is beautiful and loving and worthy of being seen, like it takes the fear away, people feel safe in it, and then they can change their lives through that lens, rather than through all this fear and this not ever looking
through the crud on the mirror. And that's just it. And I firmly believe like the more visible you are, the more money you make, period. Like there is no such thing as bad press, not to go out and seek it, but you know what I mean? Like I truly feel like the ability to show up as who you are in a true way, that's the magnet. Like there are enough people on this planet that like you don't have to niche down if you don't want to. Like you can just be yourself, and like all of the little antenna of everybody else energetically will just tune into you. And that like that's enough. Like that is my business sense. Like that is how I operate in business, and it's served me really well, despite the fact that I don't have an MBA. I've been self-employed my whole life, but I've never taken like a course on like, oh, how to figure out your, I don't know, ideal client avatar. Like I don't want an avatar, I want a human. You know, like that's what I would like here.
I love that so much. And you talked about the importance of or how the planet, the earth, the universe, the environment, everything's better when women are, well, when wealth is in the hands of women. So I'm curious to know why you feel it's so important for us to shift this and for more women to be wealthy.
So the funny thing is, that is actually a scientifically backed statement. The more women have wealth, literally, the better the laws are to support egalitarianism, to support, social justice. The more wealth women have, the better the environmental laws are. Like women historically do incredible things with money. Yes. And this is, again, not to speak about what men do, whatever. Like we have seen what's going on in terms of the majority of how certain things are allocated on the planet, right? And it never used to be like that. It's only, I think, 4000 BC when kind of the age of like cities came to be. That's when we started to see more stuff like patriarchy. And that's when we started to see, rich classes and poor classes and, men reigning over women and all that. That's when it shifted. But like original, like hunter-gatherer societies, everybody kind of had the job, but they were all on an equal footing. And the funny thing is, one of the reasons I love shamanism as my approach, first of all, like it works with sort of any belief system somebody has. Like I'm not a religious person, but I work with people who believe in, X, Y, Z, and it fits so beautifully in that. But what I love about it is it's this belief that everything has like a spirit and a soul, and that includes your business. Like sometimes one of the best things we can do to figure out what's next in our business, ask your business. Like it's not, it is a creation of you, but it's kind of like a child. Yeah. Right. So shamanism is this belief that, your dog has a spirit, your business has a spirit, your clients all do, and the planet itself, like the rocks, the trees, the squirrels, everything like that. And when we shifted away from that that is when things started to kind of split apart. And we talk about I'm sure you've learned a lot about mother wounds, right? And all of the trauma work you've done. Like, it is perfectly valid, really, really powerful stuff to talk about the familial bonds, right? Of you between your actual biological mother or the person who embodies that space in your life. But from my perspective, the original mother wound is like the splitting of ourselves from the earth.
Yes.
And again, it's not just me being like, oh, think of the fairies in the trees. Like, sure, it is scientifically backed that the more we split away from nature, the worse off our mental health gets, the worse off our bank accounts get, the worse off our businesses get, our health, our happiness. And it's like, it's one of those things that's so painfully simple, and yet it makes such a huge deal. So I think for me, when it comes to helping women create wealth, that aspect of, I guess, like animism, for lack of a better word, of reminding people that there's a soul in everything, in your business, in your new project, like your launch has its own little soul.
Yes.
It has its own little destiny. And that's why some people, like you've probably heard, they would say like, oh, I did nothing and I did amazingly well. And then in another launch, it's like it doesn't work and they tried everything. It's just, that's built into this little, animism of it. And I think in terms of helping women create wealth, we cannot exclude that, like that sense that there's a spirit behind you in everything you're doing. We have access to resources that are well beyond what our logical brain can give us. And it's using all of those tools. I used to be somebody, we were talking about my journey earlier, like I'm a trained scientist, I'm a zoologist. I was trained to look at the data, look at the evidence, try to repeat something. Like that is my big thing. If I can't repeat it, it's not worth it to me. And that goes with like a launch, even like if I can't replicate it again, that is not really worth it to me. And those tools are amazing, but we forget that along with the practical scientific tools, we also have a whole bunch of other tools that we don't use, which are the elements of whatever you believe in, in terms of the woo, the spiritual. So I think in terms of, helping women get rich, it's all of those things. Like Denise Duffield Thomas says, like, throw everything at it, right?
Yes.
Like my version of doing that is to stay like really grounded in reality with science, but also recognizing we can no longer split ourselves up from the rest of the world. And I think we see this more and more many of the mentors that I speak to, we are on board now with recognizing like we are all kind of one consciousness, right? Like we're pretty openly, we're okay saying that. We're okay saying like, yes, you and me, we're all in the same, level together, working as spiritual beings to kind of rise up the consciousness of the planet. But we don't talk enough about all the other stuff on the planet. That is like, there is medicine in everything. And I mean that quite literally, like we use plants to make medicine, but also on that imaginal realm, there is soul medicine to everything. And when I see women, like they'll say to me like, oh my God, I just feel so alone and I don't know what to do. And it's like, I have that annoying habit of being like, well, you have the answers, but like you have to show them how to get there, right?
Yeah.
And I just think that the next level of wealthy women must include all of those tools, every single one of them, because the beautiful thing is what resonates for one person might not resonate with somebody else, but there will always be something. There is not a woman on this planet who's like, none of these tools work for me. Like that's not possible because everything has a spirit, right?
Yeah.
Like you could legitimately have a fantastic business lesson come through your fridge. Like just literally, like I'm hearing my fridge right now, like maybe there's something in the persistence of that annoying noise. Just be persistent, keep showing up. Maybe there's a lesson there. It's just, you have to be open to those, understandings. Yes, I just said get business advice from her fridge. I just said that in an interview, but you get my point.
No, I get it. And I think that when we're open to lessons coming from everywhere, then the lessons can come in. And I said, now this is where I'm going to sound really funny and you might have a good laugh. But I was just telling my husband yesterday, I was like, I've never told anyone this, but I see like manifestations as almost like I'm in this Zorb. It's like egg and sperm meeting. And there's all like the manifestations are all the sperm that are trying to fertilize the egg. But this feeling that only one thing can come through when actually there's so many possibilities. And I know that that's like hilarious, but that's
no, I love that. I like the Zorb. I love that you brought up a Zorb. If people haven't seen a Zorb before, it's a giant hamster ball that they put you in New Zealand and then they throw you off a hill. That's what I did in the Zorb. But I totally agree. And again, like the thickness of the Zorb shell is kind of what we're playing with. Yeah. You know, we always talk about like one of the big lessons that I try to teach my authors in particular is that money doesn't just have to come from like the book deal. Yeah. That's one of the biggest blocks they have. They're like, oh, I want to make more money, but you know, my advance was only this. And it's like, okay, well, there are ways you can tweak that, but like, have you thought about these other 10 ways to express yourself that will make money that you control? And they're like, no. I'm like, there you go. Like thin out that Zorb coating. Yeah. Because the world wants to get these things to you. Exactly. You know, and I think one of the best decisions we can make is recognizing that everything that's happening is for our benefit. And that is a hard pill to swallow. Like that is incredibly hard. But even the thought exercise, it doesn't need to be objectively true, because who the hell knows? But the thought exercise will begin to thin out that Zorb egg lining. I think I love your metaphor. That's delightfully very, very bizarre, but as a biologist, I appreciate the egg and the sperm. Oh boy.
So I'm so thankful I had you. You're like the first person other than him yesterday that I shared that with. It's been there for a while. So I'm glad you were a safe space.
Yeah. You have to pick a biologist or something for metaphors like that, but I'm with you to the end on that one.
Well, I just want to ask, we're going to round out the interview, but I just wanted to ask if you would like to recognize other female business owners that have had a positive impact on your life or that are doing amazing things in the world that you've seen.
Absolutely. So we've already spoken about Gabby, Gabby Abrams. She's a mentor of mine as well. I love her because we come from very similar like mindsets and worlds. She was a creative before she started to do her thing now as a success coach and as well as a lawyer. And I love that she's like, we're kind of cut from the same cloth there in terms of like, there's an objective reality. Yes. But also fairies. Like, you know, like I love that she kind of shares both of those worlds with me. Another amazing soul is Rebecca Lima, who I believe is her mentor. We're all just like this big Zorb of ladies. I was in her 6-figure vision workshop not long ago. And like, she's just somebody whose energy, it's infectious in the best ways. You know what I mean? Like, she's just got so much confidence and so much like down to earth, like, girl, just do it. Like I can, again, as a creative and a scientist, I can often get kind of locked in the Ferris wheel in my own head. And like, she's somebody who will be like, whoop, and push you off the wheel. And like, you're free falling, but it's for the best. Yeah. So I love Rebecca. And another woman that when I was first kind of pivoting in my journey to go from kind of creative and teaching fellow creatives to helping just entrepreneurs in general was Joanna Hunter, who on like the spectrum of woo is like right up there. Fantastic. Yes. She's amazing, but she's also like a really, really savvy businesswoman. Mm-hmm. And I've really enjoyed, like, she will just go on her Facebook page just randomly and be like, let's talk about quantum leaps. And like, I'm sure that when you like pull back the skeleton, like there's a method behind that madness, you know, in terms of like, oh, she's launching a program or whatever, but she just seems to be so generous in what she's giving. And I'm not saying there's not thought behind it, but it does appear to just be like, let's chat together. And as somebody who can be a little over analytical in terms of like, oh, what should I share and how and why? I appreciate women like that who are just like, give. And yet we learn through their example that the universe just sort of gives it back to them. So yeah, those are 3 to start with. But I mean, if you follow me on Facebook or Instagram, like I'm always chatting and chatting at these women. So there are millions more, I'm sure. But yeah.
Where can people, thank you for sharing that. And I agree, love them all as well. And if people are looking to connect with you, where can they do that?
Oh gosh. I am all over. I am Jess Keating Books on Instagram. I believe if you just Google my name and look for like this face, you will see me on Facebook. And I am Jess_Keating on Twitter. And you can sign up for my Epic email, which is really just like a weekly note that, again, if you're into blending science with spirit, that is the place for creative entrepreneurs. And if there happens to be any authors or writing related people or illustrators watching, my Epic Authors Academy is opening doors today. I didn't even launch it yet, and I woke up to some signups, which was incredible. I've never had that happen before, where I just kind of loaded the sales page and just left it. And then I was like, okay, I better put together a launch. And then I woke up to some people in there already. So that is fantastic. So yeah, again, I'm happy to help anybody. And I'm also super, if you have questions, just like random questions, I love chit-chatting and all of that. So don't be a stranger and don't be shy, because I'm just a super friendly Canadian who is here to nerd it up and help you become your richest, most badass self.
I love that. And I highly recommend people following along, because those like one-liners that you put out are just, oh my gosh.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Amazing. Like,
it was funny. That's one of the things, actually, speaking of Gabby, she mentioned like generators, you're really good in like the comments, right? Like you go to comments and like you can reply to comments, and that's how you like build who you are. And then she was like, but manifestors, you don't really care. She's like, you don't care for that. So she's like, your best vibe is to just like say the thing you want to say. Just like put it out in there, like a post-it note somewhere, and then like run away. And I was like, that sounds really comfortable for me. So I've been doing that. So I'm really glad that you enjoy my little one-liners. And then literally I'm like, done. I'm like, I did my job today. And then I run away. So
they're so
I'm
good.
very glad you love it.
They're so good. They're so powerful. Like sometimes like I'll miss a few days, and I just love to scroll through them and to take all that wisdom in, because it is like you said, divine is the word, or people can use other words, but those are some amazing messages, and they're powerful, and that is generous in itself, just you even sharing what has come through for you and what you're willing to share. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so again, like we're all part of the same kind of wealthy ecosystem here, so I really appreciate it.
Yes. Any last words to share before we close this out?
No, I think if anybody's watching, like stop playing games. Quit playing games with your heart. Wasn't that a Backstreet Boys song or something? Like if you want something, if you desire something, that is the only sign you need that you can have it. That's it. And then in terms of like, how do you get there? It's clearing out the crap. Somebody like me or any of the amazing women we've talked about can help you do that. Yes. But that alone, like you're wanting something, is the why. So don't let silly crud on the mirror keep you from being who you want to be.
I love that. Go out there and find your spiritual Windex so you can see clearly and get it.
Oh, Lord.
Well, thank you so much, Jess. It's been a pleasure, and I'm so looking forward to this going out there into the world for others to enjoy, and just for all the interviews, because they've been amazing. And so thank you for being a part of this.
Oh, thank you so much.